Hi and welcome back to Grade Guide. This revision video on human reproduction is directed towards students completing the Junior Cycle Science exam as part of the Irish curriculum. In a previous video on the topic, we studied the male and female reproductive systems and the journey that sperm take on their way to fertilise the egg cell. In this Part 2 video, we'll be revising the development of the zygote throughout pregnancy until birth, contraceptives that can prevent pregnancy, as well as medical procedures that can help couples achieve pregnancy. We previously learned that fertilization was the fusion of a female's egg cell and a male's sperm cell to form a diploid zygote. The zygote is the first cell of the new individual, and its nucleus has the combined DNA of both the mother and father. After fertilization, the zygote makes its way from the fallopian tube into the uterus and embeds itself into the endometrium. This is called implantation. The zygote gets nourishment from the endometrium. So in the days after implantation, the zygote uses this nourishment to grow and multiply into many more cells until it develops into an embryo. The embryo continues to grow throughout early pregnancy. A sac called the amnion surrounds the embryo, and the amnion is filled with a clear-coloured liquid called amniotic fluid. Amniotic fluid protects the embryo by acting as a shock absorber in case the mother bumps into something on the outside world as she gets larger throughout the pregnancy. After about 9 weeks of growth since fertilization, the embryo has developed into a fetus. Structures called the placenta and umbilical cord have formed by this stage, and they become critically important in the continued development of the fetus right up until birth. The umbilical cord is a small cord that contains the fetus's blood. It attaches the fetus to the placenta, an organ embedded deep into the wall of the mother's uterus. So why is the placenta so important? It allows for substances to be exchanged between the mother and the fetus. For the fetus's cells to keep growing, they need to acquire energy. In the respiration topic, we've seen that cells need both glucose and oxygen to produce energy. But seeing as the fetus can't breathe or eat inside the uterus, how can it get these? It gets them from the mother's blood in the placenta. On screen you can see a close-up view of the placenta and the attached umbilical cord. The placenta is a unique organ because it contains both the fetus's blood and the mother's blood. The fetus's blood comes in and out of the placenta through the umbilical cord, while the mother's blood comes in and out from blood vessels in the wall of the uterus. On screen you can see that while the fetus's and mother's blood pass through the placenta, although their blood comes very close together, it's important to realise that they do not mix. But because they come so close together, it makes it perfect for diffusion of substances between the fetus and the mother. Oxygen and glucose from the mother's blood can diffuse into the fetus's blood before leaving the placenta, returning to the fetus, and giving it everything it needs to create energy for itself. Additionally, any wastes that the fetus produces from respiration, like carbon dioxide, can be shuttled out of the fetus's blood into its mother's blood. This exchange of substances between mother and fetus is also the reason why mothers are strongly advised to abstain from alcohol or from smoking throughout their pregnancy. If a mother drinks or smokes during pregnancy, toxins from these can pass into the fetus's blood and the placenta, and this heavily risks harming the development of the fetus, possibly leading to a physical or intellectual defect at birth, or even a miscarriage. Typically 38 weeks after fertilization, the birth of the child takes place. A natural birth consists of 3 stages, the first stage being labour. Contractions of the uterus cause the amnion to burst, and this releases the amniotic fluid which is shed through the vagina. This is known as water's breaking, even though it's amniotic fluid and not water. The cervix also begins to dilate or get wider throughout labour. Normally after hours of contractions during labour, the second stage begins, which is birth itself, when the baby is pushed headfirst through the fully dilated cervix and the vagina. The final stage takes place after the baby is born, and it's known as the afterbirth. The baby's umbilical cord is cut, and further contractions of the uterus push the placenta out of the mother. In the early stages of its life, it's recommended that the baby feed from its mother's breast milk. This is because breast milk is full of nutrients to help the baby to grow, but also full of antibodies that help to protect the baby from infection, as its immune system hasn't fully developed by this stage. But not all couples or females wish to become pregnant. In this case, Contraception can be used to prevent a pregnancy from happening. There are many forms of contraception available, but one method includes the male wearing a condom during sexual intercourse. The condom acts as a barrier, preventing sperm from entering the female system, so this means sperm cells won't make it to the egg cell. Another method that a female can take to prevent pregnancy is the contraceptive pill. The contraceptive pill works to prevent ovulation. If ovulation doesn't happen, the egg cell doesn't leave the ovary, so any sperm that make it as far as the fallopian tube won't find any egg there to fertilize. So while contraceptives allow couples who don't wish to have children to avoid pregnancy, there are also couples for various reasons who are struggling to conceive children. What can these couples do to help them achieve a pregnancy? One way is in vitro fertilisation, or IVF for short. The word vitro comes from the Latin word for glass, so in vitro fertilisation literally means in glass fertilisation. IVF is a medical procedure in which fertilisation takes place outside the body and not in the fallopian tube. So how does this happen? Doctors take sperm cells from the father and take egg cells from the mother. They're both placed into a petri dish in a lab, which is why this process is called in vitro, and fertilisation takes place in this dish to create a zygote. The zygote is then taken from the petri dish and inserted back inside the uterus of the mother. The zygote implants into the endometrium for a typical pregnancy to continue. Well, that's it for the human reproduction topic. Revise over each of these 5 points to the topic in preparation for your exams, and use this list of keywords to test yourself on the topic. Thanks for watching this grade guide video. Make sure to take a look back at our Part 1 human reproduction video on the male and female reproductive systems. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Best of luck with your revision.